with that. So thanks for filling out that survey just so we can have some information. We're going to talk to you about communicating virtually with your learners today. And I'm Pat Mulroy, and I am the supervisor of the World of Learning, and I know most of you in the room today. And so we do a lot of communicating virtually, since everything we do at the World of Learning happens in the virtual environment. So we're really excited to bring this to you. So first of all, we just want to say that staying connected right now in this, very uncertain time is really important. And there's going to be lots of different ways that we can keep connected with our learners, even if it's not around a quote unquote educational objective. We can just let them know that we're here, that we can support them with some things to do that they want to do, or how they can improve their practice. So we have been continuing to open up our rooms, and we get some kids in and we just practice or do some cultural activities. Most of you are familiar now that we're in the Zoom room. You can see we have the mute button, and most of you know that when you're not talking in a Zoom meeting, it's good to close that down. The second one is your video, and you guys have all toggled that on and off. Thirdly, we have chat. And please don't hesitate to throw some questions into the chat. We love the questions, and even if we can't get them to them today, which I'm sure we will, but if you have questions, we can get back to you on stuff, and we have other resources. And then finally, there is a poll here, and I am going to pop that poll up at this point. I'm going to turn my pointer off. And so our poll is essentially just to get an idea of what you would like to have us talk about mostly today. So we just appreciate if you just go into that box real quick and just tell us what opportunities you're looking at specifically around connecting virtually with students.
Did you launch it, Pat? I don't know if I'm the only one, but I'm not seeing it.
Oh, I did. Let me turn it off again. Yeah, I was just saying, it's weird. Nobody's doing the poll yet. Let me end it
for others.
That's okay. I'm wondering, let's see, I just ended the poll. No, let's relaunch it. Is anybody seeing that there?
No.
No.
Just stop your share.
All right, well, how about this? How about you just throw in the chat box what your rationale is for being here. Do you want to work with your staff, with your teachers, or would you like to work with your students or parents hosting a larger meeting? And then we can kind of go from there. Anita, you can kind of see in the chat, and you're going to really talk about these tools. So just take a look in the chat and see where folks are here. And looking at who we have in the room, we probably have a variety. So the IU has done a lot over the last week to bring those of us together who have worked in virtual learning for a long time. And so what we've tried to do is gather some of the expertise we've gathered over the years of us working together. And we've created some resources that you can find. You'll see them. We have My Extended Campus, which we've got those resources gathered in, and on the tab where it says resource for teachers, you'll see that there are a variety of resources and to keep that learning going virtually. Today we're on the communicating virtually. I'm sure we'll continue to offer sessions, but next week we'll also be offering some on free content and Google Classroom. And we're gathering information about what else people need. So as you complete that survey, or if you want to leave it in the chat, let us know some of the things that are important to you. So we have lots of stuff in that area. But what we're going to do today is we're going to simply talk about some of the ways that you can communicate with your students. And before we start, one of the things that we think is really important, and it applies not only now, but all the time, but just establishing a routine and sending regular messages at regular intervals for your kids. To keep it simple, keep your messaging simple. Don't lard it up with a lot of jargon. And lastly, we have to address the emotions. If we don't think about kids having their basic needs met, stuff that we learned a long time ago in our ed psych classes around Maslow and the hierarchy of needs, if kids are not having some of those basic needs met, like the school districts are dealing with right now in terms of making sure kids are fed, making sure that they're warm, that they're safe, and all those kinds of things. These are trying times. So we want to kind of make sure we address those needs with kids. So we talked about this, we can do all kinds of things in the virtual environment. We've held open houses, we hold our staff meetings, you can do updates, students can meet with teachers, and it's a place where we can share resources in both synchronous and asynchronous environments. So we're going to talk a little bit more about those things today. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Anita, and I'll let Anita address you now and just tell her a little bit about who she is and why she's the right person to talk to you this afternoon. It's this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. So, hi, everyone. My name's Anita Yuen. I'm a virtual learning specialist at IU8, but I work primarily with the World of Learning Institute. I not only teach in Zoom in this virtual environment, but I also help develop some courses in the virtual environment. I work with our new staff and all of our staff to support them in the virtual environment. So, what I've kind of can tell you, and some of the things that Pat has mentioned in regards to establishing routines and how to address maybe some learners. It seems like most of you are interested more in addressing learners and communicating with learners. So I'll kind of tailor that a little bit too, and some of the different ways that I'm encouraging some teachers who are not so comfortable with tech, how to communicate and reach out to their learners and what's easier for them based on their experiences. So some of the suggestions that we're finding, and this is great because this can be tailored for those that are trying to work with colleagues and staff as well. One of the things that you consider in doing, even in this Zoom platform, Skype, whatever you're comfortable in at this point, and having more of like a coffee break. And this is something you could do with students. So for example, like snack time, right? An opportunity where if you were in the classroom and kids were kind of munching on their snacks, you would kind of talk to them, address to them, not be as formal. You could do something like that in Zoom where you have more of a snack time, possibly a circle time in Zoom. It doesn't have to be something well thought out. You don't have to create slides for it. You don't have to think critically about it. It's just connecting at this point with your student and how to incorporate that into their daily routine. And then what we have mentioned was, especially when you're addressing maybe admin and staff, this is more obviously adults, is having more of an agenda set up so it doesn't turn into a session where I don't want to say a bash session, but you don't want them constantly complaining. So possibly having an agenda already laid out and then an area for suggestions, whether it's a chat box, whether it's a different tool you're using where they can throw in suggestions for future meetings. And I would, at this point, because everybody's kind of all over the place, maybe encourage that with staff. I'd say at least once a week. And then with your kiddos, I would almost suggest maybe once a day or once every other day, depending on what their availability is with technology. The second one is a digital learning survey. So one of the things we're finding, and I don't think we quite understand this, is not every school is obviously one-to-one, right? So there might be a device at home, but there might be 2 or 3 kids sharing that one device. So your kids can't be glued to a computer all day long. So there's a lot of surveys out there. This was a pretty good one where you can check in with families, just send that out. And so we're getting questions like, well, I don't even have my family's email addresses. Well, most of us can access our learning management systems from home, or maybe reach out to a guidance counselor or an administrator, or maybe ask for some of that information or how you could get that information so we can send this survey, or even possibly a text message where you can send a link or something like that so they can fill out the survey and you can gather some information quickly. The last one there, that online learning in that bottom left, is more for your teachers who are more comfortable in Zoom. So some of that CPDLF staff, for example, who's a little bit more comfortable with Zoom or technology, that might be some way to think about, okay, now how do I really engage in the virtual session? And what are some of the tools I can use? Last but not least, on the right, for those of you that have access to Facebook or just quickly create a Facebook account at this point, there is tremendous, I am totally floored at the amount of support that teachers are providing to one another. I'll be very honest, I loved when we started working with open education resources because they were free and it wasn't a teachers pay teachers, you weren't paying. I loved free resources. And it is amazing how many teachers across the country and around the world are now sharing free resources on these sites. So if you have a teacher who, again, all tech levels, all free resources, or hey, I'm a school that doesn't have one-to-one, I have ninth graders, social studies. You would not believe the amount of resources that people are giving to each other for free. So if you do have access to Facebook, there's very specialized groups. That first main group has over 90,000 members at this point around the world. So truly, I've been going there just to help and find any resources that I could find to help other people. So I would highly encourage, if you do have access to Facebook, to check out some of those. So as we talked about real quick, the time. So when do you meet with students? When should you do this? We kind of talked about a routine. So with the World of Learning, we ask that our teachers send out at least one weekly message. And that's typically a Sunday or Monday. Typically it's a Monday, just to check in with students. And as Pat mentioned, the very beginning is more addressed emotionally. Hey, how's your weekend going? How are things going? Did you guys, any current events? Like, did you guys watch the Super Bowl this weekend? Whatever it may be. And then it kind of progresses into, okay, now here's the business, kind of part. And then we always end in ensuring that they're okay and that they always have a way to contact us. And typically there's 2 or 3 ways that they can contact us. Some teachers use Google Voice, which is free. Some of them have no problem sharing their personal phone number. Some people say, hey, contact us through the LMS. Some people say, send me an email. So however you feel comfortable at this point, having your students connect with you or ask questions, or even parents or families, that's up to you. But and then there's 2 ways that you can communicate with students. So obviously you're synchronous when you physically meet with them, right? I always say synchronous is more the live part, right? So some teachers, some of my kids' preschool teachers, some are using Facebook Live, some are using Zoom, one is using Dojo. And so everybody's using something different. Truly, it is what you are comfortable, and encourage your staff, whatever they feel comfortable in using. And then a virtual and asynchronous. Asynchronous, absent, if that helps for those of you that struggle remembering those words. So that's when you're not physically with your students. So there's a whole lot of ways to do this asynchronously. If I'm finding that a lot of the people I know and teachers, they don't have necessarily a learning platform like some of us do, Canvas or Google Classroom. So how do you do this asynchronously? Padlets, free. You could do something really quick, or you could just do a check-in with the kiddos and have something them post. And maybe that's where you can post a video of yourself, just doing a video, or hey, here's part of our classroom routine, or here's something I can upload. Some of the other things that you could do asynchronously, some of our staff use Sway. So if your school has Microsoft, you can create Sways, which are kind of like flashy newsletters, just like this. And you can kind of incorporate some of those pictures, throw in a music video, a meme, anything like that. Kind of give them the announcements, see the details. Our teachers like to play with Bitmojis. We encourage Bitmojis. So, anything that you can kind of show them your office hours, when you're available. And what we tell our teachers is be flexible with availability. So don't forget that, again, some of these kiddos are sharing devices, right? And what's maybe more accessible via a mobile device versus a computer, because maybe they can't access a computer, but they can access a mobile device. So some of those communication tools, Padlet's able to be done mobilely. Flipgrid is, again, super kind of easy to use, set up. So if you're looking for quick ways to check in, that would be a way as well. But like I said, Google Hangouts, Google Voice, email, phone. I think we've been preaching, for example, connect and care at this point, right? Connect with your students and their families. find a way to connect with them and just show that you're caring, and provide, just, hey, we're doing okay. Do a story time, throw your kids in there, if they're around, whatever it may be, show that you're human and you're going through this too. So the last piece we wanted to share with you, my colleague Olivia and myself created this video, Learn to Teach Virtually in Under 30 Minutes. I think we're all kind of thrown into this, and there's some people with a lot of experience, some with not so much experience. So this video is aimed a little bit more for those teachers that are not as experienced. And we do share some cool tips for those that might be experienced, but this is more if they have no idea and they don't know where to start. This gives them options, both, again, like we mentioned, asynchronous and synchronous, and what it could look like. And we're both just kind of playing around in Zoom.
And one of the really cool things that they did in this video, if you wanted to share it with your staff, well, let me get back here a minute. When you go in and look at it, is they took and they put links to every resource they talk about. So when you go onto the video on YouTube, underneath in the chat, in the description, there are links to like setting up your slides. There's links to a virtual lesson plan. There's a variety of opportunities for your teachers to structure themselves inside that virtual meeting room. So that is one of the things that I think is really important that Anita and Olivia did it. And the other thing is it's so very chatty and collegial that I think it would make people feel really comfortable about getting online or even contacting to get in touch with us to get a little bit more help and support, which we're totally here for. And then Anita, another thing that people had talked about is like, well, what about the kids and what about privacy? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there's a few options. So depending on what you want to do in Zoom, or how you want to meet with students in Zoom. So obviously we meet typically with larger groups of students in Zoom. And we do have some basic guidelines that if you wanted to get them to your students, hey, be clothed, those kinds of things that seem the most obvious, but just kind of putting them down there. But privacy, if you did want to meet with a student one-on-one, there is options within Zoom to create waiting rooms where you just only allow certain people at certain times in. You can set up just specific links to meet with a student or family. We had a request earlier this week about, can I find like a website where people can schedule with me? Yeah, like there's a tons of resources out there that you could make Zoom private. And again, a camera feature is great in Zoom, but some of those students might have some things going on in their home or in their life, and kind of it's nice to have where they could shut off their camera if they want to be a little bit more private. So there's definitely some cool tools also within the chat feature. I know we use this a lot with some of our students who are a little bit more reluctant to share out loud. There is a private feature in Zoom where they could privately send you a chat, and maybe they don't want to share that with their staff, right? Or their colleagues or their classmates. So they could just throw that in there privately to you. So again, you can know what's going on, and they can really kind of feel comfortable sharing with you. And we're typically in a brick and mortar classroom, sometimes they don't always find the opportunity to talk to you one-on-one if there's other students in the class. Well, this can happen in Zoom, so it's a really nice feature. Yeah, so Zoom is pretty free. In fact, right now it's very free from Zoom. So it's super easy to sign up for a Zoom account, and we'll give you those directions on how to do it, and get you set up.
Yeah, and if you, obviously, if you need something, you can go right to our site and it'll ask you, you can type a message in. If there's some kind of resource that you didn't hear about, you can type that message in and we'll get to you with the resources you need. But if you take a look at the communicate piece here, some of you are asking about links. In this spot here, we have almost all of the things that we've talked about today in a lot more detail. Because 30 minutes is a really short period of time. But this is where Anita and Olivia's video lives. We talk about setting up that free account. I did a real short video. It's less than 2 minutes, I think, which is really good for me to do something so quickly, those of you who know me. The guidelines here, so you can have this chart that you could click on and you could download it for yourself, giving some of those guidelines, how to share your screen and some of the tools that are available, how you mute, record, and invite students if you want to make a video, how to do that, how to download those kinds of things, how to share files in the chat. There's things that you can do there. You talked about all the really neat features in chat, like being able to do a private message. So if students don't want to do something out to the group, sometimes teachers even use that as a resource so every kid answers and they don't have to really worry about what the other kids are saying or if they get a wrong answer. I'll just load a few more in here for you so you can see. This is about making recordings. So there's a little piece in there about how you can make a recording if you want to send it out to your students. Making it engaging. So, and we have a lot more resources for that, but this is one that just gives a few ideas for things that you could do. Again, it's just another graphic. And then we have this stuff, Anita talked early on about Google Voice, and Google Voice is a way that if as an educator you don't want to give your phone number out, and we do have a direct link to Google Voice here where you could set up a phone number that you could share that is collect directly at your phone, but it also picks up all of the things in your Google account, and students don't have your personal number. So, so I think, there's a lot of things out there that you can try and do, and without getting too overwhelming. We have this sway here. If you would like some of the templates our teachers created, so you don't have to start a new one, we'd be more than happy. Our teachers have created a library of their own to share those sway templates so that they don't have to start from scratch, because sometimes that's hard. And that was one of the conversations we had in the morning session. But sway has been great, and Olivia was even sharing with her with the group this morning that her folks, 1 week she didn't send a sway message out and the kids were like, oh, where was the sway? So you set those expectations, and kids really start to like seeing your Bitmojis and what kind of creative things you're going to come up with. So it makes it easier if you have a template. The other thing I just want to point you to is in the World of Learning, we have at theworldoflearning.com, we have a blog and some resources here for a lot of those tools. So you can jump onto our blog, and if you want to take a look in here, so for parents and students or school leaders, you can get a sense of some of the tools that we talked about today and that are on the website. They're free. Brain breaks are a great thing to do, fun things to do with kids. A lot of it's language-based, but there are things in there where we talk about tools. So that's just another resource for you that you can have. And like we said, there's going to be more of these webinars, and we're certainly willing to help or host. If you need something individualized, we can make time and have meetings with you. I know Chris is set up with one of our participants this morning where Brenda is actually meeting with them to do some Google Classroom stuff. So if there's things that you really need about communicating, Anita and Olivia and myself would be more than willing to help you navigate through some of those different things. So if you have any questions now, we have 5 minutes left. We did great, Anita. Good job on that. Anita and I talked about that we both like to talk, and we both like to talk fast. So it might be a little different than the one with Olivia this morning. So if you have questions, we're glad to answer those questions. If you want to put them in the chat, or if you just want to unmute your mic and try the tool out, that would be great too. And Chris, Chris will actually upload the recordings and all of the links that we shared today that we had in our slides. So the slides will be available as well on the website so that you'll have them.
Yep, absolutely. As soon as the video's done processing, that will be available on the website. I'll put the slides up right away.